sometimes listening to the punditry whenever it comes to Democrats drive you crazy. The Democrats are attempting to do something for people. Yes, we have two stragglers that are really hurting the performance, hurting what we're trying to accomplish. But ultimately, these fights are because Democrats are trying to do, progressive specifically, what's good for the American people. I never hear pundits hit Republicans whenever they're going through their inter-party type of issues as hard as these guys did. But you know what? It's good to understand what they're saying now so that when these bills are passed, we know what we have to counteract, what we have to defend against, the type of messaging that not Democrats are putting out, but that the media is putting out. Check this out, and then let's go ahead and take it on the other side.
What is the mindset of Democrats on Capitol Hill? Do they see the forest right now through these trees of obstruction, if you will?
I think they do. I mean, Democrats promised the world to their voters coming into that last election cycle, and now they're trying to figure out what they can still deliver on. They've left some priorities by the wayside. The guns bill, the voting rights bill that'll get a vote this week that they don't think are going to pass. But all the marbles are on these two big spending bills right now, and they're just pretty well stuck. Now, I think everyone understands that reconciliation bill is probably too big to fail. They will all survive or fail, and if they don't pass that big bill in some capacity, probably everybody's going home.
Here's what Politico wrote yesterday. Here's the cold reality, they write. It now appears all but impossible for Democrats to enact a reconciliation package that's anywhere near as far-reaching as what polls suggest a large majority of Democratic voters want, and that effectively means that for a lot of Dems, it will be hard to see whatever ends up coming out of this process as a success with potentially dire implications for the party in 2022.
See, I think the challenge really goes back more to what Garrett is saying, is that I don't know that Democratic voters are particularly excited about Build Back Better or an infrastructure bill.
Don't you see all the individual polling that they tell you this? I'm sorry, I just makes me nuts.
I know it.
Just because something polls well doesn't mean it's
that it's salient. It's not salient.
Yes.
What is salient, and I've been sitting in these focus groups, especially with younger African-American voters, you know what they're talking about? Exactly what Garrett said, which is, where's the police reform? We talked about that a lot in 2020. Mm-hmm. Voting rights, this is an existential threat to our country, and what, we can't pass it? You're in charge, Democrats. It's you have a chance to do this. And so I think they're sort of missing out on the things that do really energize Democrats.
Kimberly, how demoralized do you think the Democratic base could get if this gets fraught?
Oh, I think it is very existential at this moment for all the reasons that Amy was talking about it. I don't think it's just a matter that the Democrats promised the world to their voters. It's the voters demanded these things from Democrats. And now they're saying, okay, well, you have the White House, you have Congress, and after the end of 2 years, we have nothing. I think that will be absolutely devastating to the Democratic base if they walk away without, not just with nothing, but without voting rights, particularly, without anything, without making sure everyone has health care, the expansion of Medicaid. I mean, if they walk away with nothing, they can expect, as you said, to pack up.
Here's what Charlie wrote. Democrats push for way too much without having the political capital to make it stick. It's killing them on overreach. It's killing them on competence. If misreading a mandate is a sin in politics, pretending that you have one when you don't is a mortal sin. Is that the issue?
In March, John Meacham convened a bunch of historians at the White House who said to Biden, you can be FDR, you can be LBJ. Lyndon Baines Johnson won election in 1964 with a 155-seat majority in the House and 155-seat majority and 69.
Is that more than 5?
And 69 Democratic senators. And in 1965, they passed 70 major pieces of legislation. Joe Biden has a majority of, and a 50-50 Senate, only a 50-50 Senate, because of bizarre machinations by Trump in November and December that depressed the Republican vote. Democrats went nuts in the winter. They went crazy. They're proposing, they were at the point of having $8 trillion of new spending with no consensus. Forget the Democratic base. Like, there was no mandate to do any of this from the American people writ large.
But they're locked in structurally, right? I mean, you can't do voting rights with a 50-vote threshold. You can't pass a guns bill with a 50-vote threshold. You can spend money with the 50-vote threshold.
Right.
And you have to say the price tag first. That's the way reconciliation works. And so they lock themselves into this messaging nightmare by saying, okay, we have to set the price tag and then tell you all the good stuff it's going to do. And that's not right. And then take it all out. Right. That's not a way you build a coalition around anything, but it's what they were forced into do.
And they had a coalition for a bill. They have a huge spending bill, $1 trillion infrastructure bill. That's a big bill.
I'm not sure $1 trillion spending package would satisfy the people who spent the pandemic marching in the streets for real social justice reform. So I don't think that that would solve all their problems either. And I do think that the American people and Senator Manchin should realize that West Virginians make up 0.5% of the American population.
But the West Virginians who voted Joe Manchin in voted almost 40% for Trump. Trump's margin was 40 points in 2020 in West Virginia.
He is more important, I think, to turning out the Democratic base than whether a bill passes Congress. Yes.
And that is, I think, potentially a long-term problem for the Democrats.
Yes.
They can't keep going back to the Trump well.
Unless Donald Trump keeps running.
Unless Donald Trump keeps running. But, I mean, this analysis by these guys were so flawed. First of all, I like when the Republican pundit said, the Democrats went bat, you know what, crazy. They didn't have a mandate. They do have a mandate. It is funny. I pick your pocket. After I pick your pocket, I say, can I give you some back? The states are gerrymandered. It's an undemocratic society, which means that rural areas and places with little population, because of the way things are structured, they have they have more power in Congress than they deserve. So when this guy comes out and he says they don't have a mandate, he's talking crap. There is a mandate. Ask about all the policies in Build Back Better, and Americans want them. 63% and above, they want them. That is a mandate. Why doesn't the people in Congress reflect that? The amount of votes in Congress reflect that? Because the system is rigged. So when you say Biden doesn't have a mandate, Biden has a mandate from the people to effect these policies. He may not have a mandate from the politicians to effect these policies, and that is why he has to try all kinds of techniques to get it. So that Republican guy who's talking about the Democrats are overreaching, that's crap. And some of the other pundits sort of implied that as well. There is no overreach here. This is what the American people want. We have to find a way to force these particular politicians to do the same. And when they talk about, oh, Americans not really all that interested in Build Back Better, they're more interested in police reform. They're more interested in voter rights. We're definitely interested in voter rights, but you know what? We know voter rights we can get around, and the people that don't vote right now are not thinking about voter rights. The people that vote now think about voter rights, and they will find a way to vote. Now, the other item is when it comes to police reform. If you are a person of color, you want police reform, but it's not the stopper, because that's going to take a hell of a lot of time. It's going to take a whole lot of old policemen dying and new people coming in before we really get a change. But you know what comes right away? Build Back Better. That check for your children comes right away. That aid to help you put your kids in a daycare center so that you can go to work, that is immediate. And that is what they feel. And if they know that is there, and if these pundits would stop talking about not having a mandate and start talking about what is in the bill, Democrats come on and tell you what's in the bill, and they ask you, oh, so what? How can you get reconciliation passed? It is not the problem. It's not the fault of the Democrats that a whole lot of people are ill-informed or feeling sort of awe about this system. It's a horrendous media that is elitist in what they pick. Just watching them not know what really people want proves that point. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.